Will he or won't he? You know, we've gone through the Me Too movement. We've had others that have either said things, done things, written things, acted in ways in which they've lost their job because of it, and because of behavior unbecoming of whatever position they previously had. And John Gruden is probably the prime NFL football example. There were emails that were, many of which were a decade old. The NFL has said, look, this is actually consistent with some of the other emails we got from him that weren't as old. But there were emails that were sent to the league which got him ousted mid-season last year. I remember this is John Gruden, who, of course, won a Super Bowl in Oakland. Went to a Super Bowl in Oakland, won a Super Bowl. He didn't go to a Super Bowl in Oakland, my bad. They're competitive, they lost. Then they went to the Super Bowl with Bill Callahan against John Gruden, who won a Super Bowl in Tampa. And for the most part, had good success in Tampa, even though it didn't end well, and he ends up getting fired when he had kind of a rotating series of quarterbacks. Gets fired, goes to the Monday Night Football booth, and kind of had the world as his oyster, right? He was doing the draft. He had the Fired Football Coaches of America Association. He had the pre-draft interviews, which everybody loved watching. And I was of the belief that the reason the Raiders had to give him 10 years and overpay him was he kind of had a lifetime deal with Monday Night Football. Monday Night Football, they had been searching for a guy to be a personality, to have the pedigree of having won a Super Bowl, whatever. He gave them everything that they needed. And he gave them personality, and he was prepared. Whether he said anything, whatever, it's Monday Night Football. He did a good job on TV, and they were all in. He wasn't going anywhere, so you had to give him security in years and in money. And they did. They did. So John Gruden spoke Tuesday at the Little Rock Touchdown Club in Arkansas. The Hogs are getting ready for this upcoming season, one in which they think is going to be a special one. Here's John Gruden, in his own words, what I think is a pretty solid apology.
I'm not going to say anything but honest things here. I'm ashamed about what has come about in these emails, and I'll make no excuses for it. It's shameful. But I am a good person. I believe that. I go to church. I've been married for 31 years. I got 3 great boys. I still love football. I've made some mistakes, but I don't think anybody else in here hasn't. And I just ask for forgiveness, and hopefully I get another shot.
Okay, so look, he asked for forgiveness, and I think anyone who wants to consider themselves a Judeo-Christian can understand, go like, all right, listen, he said he's sorry, he's ashamed of it. Like, okay. You know? And while some of you can, well, he said church because he just throw that. Like, no, he's just trying to make a point. It's like, look, I wrote some bad things. I've said some things which I clearly regret. But, you know, how you actually treat people is what matters the most, right? Don't get me wrong. The termination based upon what he's written, he doesn't make an excuse for it. But the most important thing in all of this is how you actually treat people, right? The next most important thing is what you say and the air you give off and whatever. But the asking for a second chance. Okay, Deshaun Watson's getting his second chance, and he is alleged to have sexual misconduct with up to, 24 women? That might be a non sequitur. We're comparing a coach and a player. Okay. Here's the missing part to it. I believed in what John Gruden was doing in practice in terms of shedding the salaries. Like the Amari Cooper trade was a smart one. Right? The Khalil Mack trade was a smart one. They didn't have cash and they weren't any good. So why overpay 2 players when all it's going to do is limit what other players you can bring in when you can get draft resources and sprinkle them out and rebuild the roster. And they did rebuild the roster. And even though they missed on like the last 2 first-round draft picks, yikes. Overall, the roster was good enough, at least good enough, with the spirit and the energy that Rich Bisaccia took over with. They still got to the playoffs last year. So there is some result in the process. But considering he ran that organization, he was in charge. And I asked people, like, so how much of this, the draft picks are Mayock and how much of it is John Gruden? They're like, look, Mayock does a lot of the legwork, but every one of those decisions is John Gruden. So when I say I don't think John Gruden gets another chance, it's not because of the emails alone. It doesn't feel that way. Like, and remember, if you want to think about how big a name John Gruden was, go and Google John Gruden to Tennessee. Remember there was a time he was with Monday Night Football and the Volunteers thought they were getting John Gruden. He was everybody's white whale. Maybe he'll come to Texas and fix Texas. Maybe he'd come here. Maybe he'd come there. Will he coach in college? Will he coach in the pros? He was the guy sitting out there, man. If you could just talk John Gruden back, what a football guy. Did you look at the Raiders draft picks? Have you seen how bad they were? You know? And you can go, well, hold on, listen. Look what they were able to do, in finding an absolute star in the third or fourth round, and getting a defensive end. And Max Crosby was a 4th rounder. Look what they got in Max Crosby. Like, okay. When Cleveland Farrell and Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Abram, when they're not, given their 5th-year option, Henry Ruggs is in jail, right? Like, you could kind of go through. Alex Leatherwood just got cut. You're like, I don't think John Gruden gets another chance because not just the baggage he brings, but the football decisions that were made. And if the Raiders this year are better and the offense is better and Gruden was the play caller and you bring in, Josh McDaniels who, like, look, the worst crime Josh McDaniels committed was, well, twofold. One, being arrogant and stinking with the Denver Broncos, or 2, backing out of the Indianapolis Colts. That pales in comparison to either 1, the emails, or 2, running the ship completely into the ground with all these draft picks and whatever he wanted in a new city. Like, I don't know. I'm all for second chances. But part of what the biggest thing that allows people to have a second chance is just talent galore. Right? Like, the reason Colin Kaepernick didn't get another chance wasn't because of the kneeling. It was because he wasn't a good quarterback. He wasn't a good enough quarterback. He was a backup. He had gotten worse, not better. Granted, the talent around him had gotten worse, not better, but he had topped out. He wasn't great. He wasn't seen as a leader. That's why, go back and look at why he lost it. But the reason that Deshaun Watson does, because he's got crazy talent. The reason that Jameis Winston has gotten all these chances is because he's got crazy talent. And the reason that John Gruden probably doesn't get another chance is because, if the talent is he's a football guy, what happened in Vegas? In the decisions that you made, football and, the off the field, you own the off the field decisions of your players. The ones that you drafted, the ones that you signed, the ones that you got behind. It doesn't feel like, because in order to hire John Gruden, you can't hire him as assistant. He's not coming in as assistant coach. He's coming as the head coach. Right? So to hire John Gruden, you got to come in as the head coach. You got to deal with all that other stuff with the league and with anybody who's offended by any sort of email that's out there, right? And then you're like, okay, but what about the football decisions? Are those actually good enough?